Welcome back to MOMnation Unscripted. Now, a word from our sponsor.
Hi, it's Marilyn
and Bruce
of Montage Duo. We are a versatile musical act that performs music from the 1940s to today.
We cover a wide range of musical genres and styles, including classic rock, pop, country, funk, blues, and even a little jazz.
So, if you're looking for professional quality entertainment in the greater Phoenix area, either for an intimate acoustic setting
or a rockin' full band sound, Montage Duo will please you and your guests, engaging them to join in the fun by providing an interactive entertainment experience.
For more information, visit our Facebook page at Montage Duo.
Hey, we are back for week. What is this? Is this episode 11 of
I can't even
season 2,
believe
Katie?
it. I say that every single time, though.
No, but still, I can't believe it's been 11 episodes so far. I'm like thinking about them in my head. I'm like, what have these been? Oh my gosh! So I'm super excited. So how are you, Katie?
I am doing much better today than I was this time last week. I can tell you that right now.
Yeah, tell me about your last week.
So my computer crashed, right? So that's what happened the last time that we were here.
Yeah, if you guys weren't here last week, that tragedy had just happened.
That's a great way to describe it because it was ridiculously tragic. Yeah, when you run two businesses that are really, really busy, you need your computer. It gets frustrating. So since then, I did end up getting the Mac Mini that I was telling you about. And it's legit. And so I had to get a new monitor and stuff like that. But anyway, long story short, don't have to get into all of those details. I am up and running and I am like launching rocket ships now from my house. Because it moves so dang fast. It's like I open something up and poof, it's there, which
I love it.
I need. I mean, I need that.
So, just for like the sanity perspective of like things actually moving fast like you want them to. Yeah, that's huge. So
it's necessary. I cannot wait. I'm very impatient, especially for things to open. So that is yay number 1. So yay number 2, actually, I was a little bit naughty.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I was a little bit naughty over the weekend, and I guarantee it was 10 or less. Okay. But we did a little travel, did a little road trip.
Like I did the week before.
To do those.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Like you did the week before. And we went to visit some friends that were camping out in the Payson area. So it was all outdoors. Nobody was inside together. And, we were being safe, I promise. But it was so nice to see my friends. So nice.
Human contact. Oh my gosh.
But it was like, right? It was so normal. It wasn't even funny. But you want to know what's really funny? And this might be an episode. Is, how I was teasing about that meme I made that said, this is me getting used to people after, COVID-19 or the whole, whatever.
Yeah.
It's a thing. Like we pulled up. And these are friends that I've had for years that I share everything with, that I adore through and through. And I actually had a little tinge of, oh my gosh, I got to visit with people, even though I knew them. My son was the same way. He is, him. He is so outgoing, so social, like unbelievable, enough for both of us, And he got out of the car and he literally has never done this before, my 6-year-old, and he was hiding behind my legs. Like, I don't know if I want to play with the kids. And I'm like, babe, these are your friends. Like they were all at your birthday party a couple of months ago, like these are your buddies. Yeah. And it took him it didn't take long. It was a couple minutes, but it took him a little encouragement to just be like, no, go play with the kids. So I thought that was funny.
Yeah. Well, so it was interesting because this past Friday, Beth Easton, who was on season 1 of MOMnation Unscripted, she and I, we have watched musicals together like every Friday night since like November. And then the lockdown happened, and so we stopped doing that. And this past Friday, we both just like needed the human connection. And so I just let her know, like, I was like, do you want to come over? Like, I just think it'd be good for both of us. And she came over, and like, I wasn't very social while she was there, but the next morning I woke up and I instantly, I was like, I'm going to go clean the toilets. And like, it seems like the most, the tiniest little thing, but I like woke up with enough energy, with enough like direction to go clean the toilet just because I saw someone. Like, we were we weren't super social. We weren't talking a lot, but like physically having someone in my space for a few hours besides, my kids and my husband, it changed so much energetically.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. So anyway, well,
so we just confessed we were both naughty. Did you hear that, Lisa?
I did. I'm taking notes.
She's going to tell on us. She's going to report us through some secret app.
Yeah, no, there'll be no reporting because, I've got my own.
We're live on Facebook.
There'll be no reporting.
You've got your own naughty secrets.
Yeah. Uh-huh. I've got my own little things.
She's not sharing either.
Every day with a girlfriend, and yeah.
Yes. And it cracks me up, like all of these people who they'll post and they'll be like, I need somebody, an underground waxer. I need an underground nail lady. I need and it happens. Like, they're getting them.
What else is interesting, as we're getting ready to come out of it, I have also started to think like, what's my list of priorities? Because I only have so much free time to get so many things done. So I'm like, is it hair, or is it facial, or is it nails, or is it the handyman to come fix that dripping sink? Like, what is, it's not the handyman, but what is
I was going to say.
Just go ahead and eliminate that one.
No, on the list, but
oh, that's so funny. Yeah. So
we need a huge favor before we introduce Lisa. I'm really, really stoked to talk to Lisa today. I know she's going to have all kinds of good, juicy bits for us, but we need a favor from the audience, right, Beth?
Yes, we do. Guys. And
what is it?
Oh, okay. I'm like, wait, what? So we do have a couple of favors that we want to ask from you guys. So first off, if you don't know what MOMnation Unscripted is, Katie and I come on and we talk about topics every single week that moms care about, but we do it completely unscripted. Because guys, we attempted to script it and we never did a single podcast episode. And then we just started doing it 100% unscripted. And well, here we are on episode 11. So really, really, we're doing this partially for us, but partially because we know that it's important that we get these stories and these lessons and whatnot out to you guys. So there's that. But we need your help in order to be able to get these out to more people. And the way that you can help us to get these podcast episodes out to more people and to reach more people, make a bigger impact, and help more moms like you is by going to iTunes and rate, reviewing, and subscribing these episodes. Make sure that you download the episodes. Because if you don't download them for some reason, it doesn't count. Pretty stupid, we know, but it is what it is. And so if you're going to go leave us a rating, please only leave us a rating. If you're going to leave 5 stars, if you're going to leave anything less, just go leave it on somebody else's podcast. And actually, don't do that. That's not nice.
Yeah, that's not nice. Just put a 5 instead.
But just keep listening. Just keep listening until you decide that we are 5-star people. And once you decide that we are, then go leave that rating for us. So, and then go leave like a review that makes it so that other moms like you will want to listen, and they'll start to understand the value that this brings to your life because they want it themselves. So anyway, that's what we need you to do. So please. And Katie, would you mind telling them about like what our big dream goal vision is for this? and why we need them to help us reach more people?
Of course. So real quick, MOMnation began because, like Beth mentioned the other day, because I was bored. Sort of.
Bored one day.
And I was just like, hey, this sounds cool. No, just kidding. MOMnation was for friends, man. It was for people to relate with, for me to relate with what I was going through when I first had my baby, right? So there's all sorts of things that have happened along the way. And this is 6 years now. We're coming up on 6 years in August. And so throughout years of, providing resources to moms, befriending moms, interacting, socializing, all of that stuff, I started to realize that there are some moms that are going through transition into becoming a single mother. So whether that be from the loss of a spouse, unfortunately, that does happen, or, separation or whatever. I mean, there's a whole bunch of reasons, doesn't necessarily mean divorce, but there's a whole bunch of reasons why a mom would become a single mom. And I realized that there are, there's some things out there, but there are very few one-stop shops where these moms can go to and, get a place to live for a couple of months, get back on their feet, maybe get some training about putting together their resume, updating resumes, just getting all of the necessary resources. Maybe there's an addiction or something in there. Maybe there's some mental health problems in there that just need to be dealt with. So our big vision is to provide a place that does even include housing for these moms that are going through this transition so that they can get all of the resources that they need. I like what Beth says. She calls it a hand up, not a hand out. So get the resources and the help and the support that they need to just get back into life again. I mean, they can do it. They just need a little hand up in order to do so.
Yeah, what I always think about people, everybody always says for you to improve your social circles and hang out with better people. What I found is that if you start to improve yourself, either the people around you, they improve themselves to match you, or you find out that they were already actually these incredible people, but you weren't showing up for them in a way that they could show up that way for you. And so that's just one of the things that I really love about this sisterhood, this connection that we're working on developing through MOMnation to be able to create that.
Yes, ma'am. I love it. I'm excited about it. So real quick, it's called, we've named it, and obviously it's just a vision right now. We are working toward this, but we're going to have, call it a MOMmune. So kind of picture, maybe a 3-4 story building, something like that, with a couple of moms living in there, apartment on each floor or whatever it is. We're not sure what it's going to look like yet. But these moms, not only will they be able to get resources from the MOMmune, right, from the group, but even with each other. So the idea is that they can help each other. Maybe mom A works nights and mom B works days. They can help each other with childcare, just to kind of get back into the swing of life. So that's really what we're working toward here.
Yes, I love it. And
cool mastermind,
Yeah.
Right. I just
so much can be done together,
Yeah. And I just think that mission and that vision has to be shared as much as possible, because I think that the more often we share it, the sooner it's going to come into reality. So thank you.
Yeah.
So I am super excited for today's episode. So today we are having my friend Lisa Smith come on, and Lisa Smith is an incredible parenting coach. And, I was telling Katie before we came on here, I was telling Katie, I was like, you know what, we honestly could just shut up the whole time and just let Lisa talk, and she would just absolutely crush it. So I am really excited to be able to bring some of the knowledge that I've been able to learn from Lisa to the MOMnation audience. So that being said, hi, Lisa.
Hi.
So first off, do you want to just let people know a little bit about yourself, just the basics outside of being the peaceful parent?
Sure. So I'm Lisa Smith, and I am a mom to a 15-year-old young man who will have his license in 89 days.
Who's counting?
And we call him a full contact sport. He's about as strong-willed as they come. I'm married and to a great guy. And when I'm not coaching, I'm reading romance novels, doing CrossFit, biking, and working on personal development. I am a personal development sociology junkie. So love people, love studying people, love figuring people out. It's my jam.
She's so good at it. She's so good at it. It's been really fun. So Lisa and I just ended up meeting through the marketing, branding, business kind of world, and then we found out that we lived near each other, and we met for Indian food, which is my favorite.
Yay.
And yeah, right. Katie knows all about my love for Indian food, so
I do.
I think everybody knows about my love for Indian food. Guys, if you ever want to spoil me, just buy me a gift certificate for Dhaba. I will be so happy. Oh man. So it's funny because my husband has been teasing me about, he's like, why are we eating at Taco Bell? Don't you want to make sure Dhaba stays in business? I'm like, you're right. I do. So,
Good point.
yes. Solid point. But Lisa she has such a well-developed philosophy around parenting. So I just kind of want to let you tell your story about how I've heard it 100 times and it never gets old. But will you just tell the story about the moment that you realized that what you were doing wasn't working?
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'll have to grab a tissue because I'm sure I'll tear up a little bit. So
Got it.
Their tissues. So I grew up in a really dominant, chaotic household. And from a very early age, I said if I ever had a child, I would not parent them the way I was parented. And I remember from the age of 12 on, sitting up every morning in my bed saying, I will do it differently. I was a life coach well before I knew what that was. And I've always been my own best client. So fast forward, I was married 14 years, and my husband and I decided to have a child. At the time, I was an executive, really successful medical device career, just doing really well. I was a kind person. People liked me. I had great relationships. I didn't have any anger in my life. I was just all around a content, happy person. And I had my son. I loved him bunches from the moment I laid eyes on him. And he got to be around 2 or 3. And I started to notice that I was angry and reactive all the time over the little stuff. Just had this just general irritation. And he's very strong-willed. So there was a lot of pushback on his part. He was not an easygoing, compliant, child that was gonna, I'd say, go brush your teeth, and he'd do it. He had some pushback, and it was causing a lot of stress. So when he was about 4, one day I was yelling at him, and he was yelling at me, and I was yelling at him for yelling at me. And I was thinking at the same time, I remember it like it was yesterday, who taught him this? And then this voice came in the room, and the voice said, you, Lisa, you're teaching him this. You're teaching him to be angry and reactive. And, I like to say that if yelling were an Olympic sport, I would come from a dynasty of gold medalists. And, it's what I knew. It's how I was parented. And as much as my heart didn't want to repeat the patterns, it was obvious that I was repeating the patterns I grew up in. And I was devastated. The guilt and shame were off the charts. Every morning I would wake up and I would say, today's the day I'm not going to yell, just like a diet. And by 5:30, I was yelling, drinking Chardonnay, or both. And, part of the problem is that I didn't have any role models. I didn't have any tools. And when I looked around at the outside world, everybody seemed to be getting it right. And it was like a club that no one let me into. I could not figure out how to stop yelling. So on that particular day, I fell to my knees, literally begging the universe for a solution. I leaned into it. I succumbed to, I need help. I had read tons of books. Books, they're not transformative. They can be informative, but it's hard to create a massive transformation through a book. So as the story goes, the solution fell into my lap a few days later. That's how the world works, right? You ask, it comes. So the universe produced the solution, and it was conscious parenting. which I call peaceful parenting. And I became a student immediately. I learned things like to care about the relationship more than the behavior. I learned why I yell. I learned how to show up differently. I learned how to create connection. And at first I was just a student, and I became obsessed with conscious parenting. And, you know, at this time, I'd never really believed people had callings. You know, I was like, oh yeah, you just get a job, you like it, you do a great job, right? But calling, I think that's just some made up theory. But all of a sudden, I felt it. Like, I quit my job. I was a venture capitalist. At this point, I had transitioned into the venture world, which couldn't be any different than peaceful parenting coaching. I left my venture job and I became a parent coach, and I am my own best client, and have had a massive transformation. I was able to let go of the yelling. I was able to create new ways to show up in stressful times, because parenting is stressful, or can be at times. And now I work with, you know, parents all over the world to move away from that dominant parenting and move towards peaceful parenting, which is where we use our power to come alongside our child and we create connection and cooperation.
So one of my favorite things about that story is I also come from a long line of yellers. And, you know, when my children were younger, I did yell a lot. And it was through things like Lisa and the things that she taught me that I was able to start to, like, okay, check yourself, right? Like, this is not the future that you want for your kids. And now I have different things that I'm working on, because you can always become a better parent. I'm past the yelling, but there's different things like being emotionally disconnected, or just one of the things that you talk about is not being a dominant parent, but also not being a permissive parent. And that's, you know, find peaceful is right in the middle between those two, if we were thinking of it as a spectrum. And so right now, as moms are sitting home and parents are sitting home with their kids after being in an unexpected quarantine for the past 6-7 weeks, whatever it's been.
Who knows?
All right. It's a blur. That's all I know at this point. And there's not necessarily, like, we hope there's an end in sight, but we don't necessarily know that there's an end in sight.
Right.
What's your advice for all of these parents that are just like in this crazy headspace as the parent right now?
Yeah, you know, my advice might be a little controversial, but I'll share it.
I like controversy.
Please
Go on.
ready.
So, you know, I have a lot of empathy for our children right now. And this really probably will make me tear up, because the best parts of school have been stripped away from our kids.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that they go to school for many reasons. We send them to get a break and to have them learn, but they go for other reasons, right? Socialization, connection with like-minded people, being around people their own age, getting away, having some autonomy. If you're one of many kids in a household, when you go to school, you're not Beth's child or Katie's sibling, you're your own individual. There's learning in an environment that works for them. There's PE, there's lunch, there's recess, there's learning the latest trends. There's just in some instances, it's getting a break from the chaos, the yelling, the unhappiness going on at home, right? Or the hovering mother. There's a lot of reasons they go to school. And those have all been taken away from them with no moment's notice, like gone. And now the worst parts of school, learning in an untraditional controlled environment, is being foisted upon them. So it's stressful for children right now. And even though they may only be 6 or 8, and we know that, or 10 or 14 or 15, we know this is limited, all joking aside, you know, we know the world is going to come out of this. Their brains don't really know that. Kids have incredibly underdeveloped prefrontal cortex, and they can't see a couple steps ahead. So I have a lot of empathy for how challenging this is for a lot of kids. They're disconnected, they're isolated, they're alone. There's a lot going on at home that we haven't even, you know, that isn't even without adding on the tension of mom and dad being together, depending on how that's going. the tension of furloughed employees or mom working at home for the first time, or right. So I think a couple suggestions right now are just take it down a notch. You know, C-level work. If we're going to give ourselves grades, A, B, C, C-level work right now is just fine. We don't need to be overachievers in quarantine. You know, we as parents, we don't need to be cleaning out the cabinet underneath the sink. We don't need our kids to be writing 9-page essays, right? Let's just all take a deep breath and let's work on developing our kids' emotional intelligence instead of their academic intelligence. I mean, in America, it's April. Depending on where you live, school is ending somewhere in the next 2 months.
Right.
There's nothing that's going to be covered at the end of April that won't be reviewed in the fall. Nothing. But this is an opportunity for us as parents to raise emotional intelligence, to create connection with our children. And, you know, I have this Post-it note that I keep here, and it says, at the end of the pandemic, what do you want your parenting skills to look like? Right? So it's a chance. So one of the things I recommend is take your expectations down, take your intensity down a little bit. You know, maybe, you know, you spend 45 minutes 3 times a day on homework, on schoolwork, and in between that, there's fun, or there's activities the kids enjoy engaging in. Another thing I recommend is, if you're working from home, make sure you're spending 5 or 10 quality minutes every hour with your kids. They don't care about quantity, they care about quality. But you can't ignore them for 8 hours while you're talking away on your computer and expect when you finally look up that they're not going to be storming, because they need a lot of attention and they need some quality investment every hour. You got to keep filling the cup. And then my third piece of advice is just take those expectations down. You know, this is not the time to be remodeling a house or picking carpet or cleaning out cabinets or making gourmet meals. If you have kids at home, this is the time to be investing in the emotional intelligence of your children, because I believe our children, when they think about the isolation, lockdown, shelter in place of 2020, the memory is going to be about the connection that was or wasn't there with the parents.
100%. I love a lot of what you just said. And I really love the 5 or 10 minutes, an hour spending time, because, and I find myself doing it and, you know, got the tissues because I feel bad about it every time. And I think about it after and I'm like, geez, just think about what you just did. But I find myself saying, you know, later, babe, yeah, mom will do that after this call. Yeah. Let me finish this email. Okay. Let me and what I'm not realizing, so to me, I want to be able to focus on him 100%. So let me just finish this so then I can do that. But I feel like the message I'm sending is, hey, this email is more important than you. Hey, this text is more important than you. And that's freaking sad.
Well,
you know?
I'll give you a suggestion, Katie. So set a timer. You and your, how old is your son?
He's 6.
Oh, perfect age. Perfect age. First of all, they have short-term memory, so no guilt, no guilt. When we know better, we do better. But you and he set a timer on your phone, like every hour, to go off at 10 till the hour. And you want to build trust with them too. So what you're going to say is, hey, when this timer goes off, we're going to both drop everything we're doing and we're going to spend 10 minutes together. And like have a dance party, make lunch, fold laundry. It doesn't, like, they are happy to do things we're interested in, walk to the mailbox, you know, whatever. And then when the timer goes off after 10 minutes, you're like, okay, ready, break, back to work. And then every hour that timer goes off, it builds a lot of trust. They know they're going to get their mom time. They feel good about it. Because the other thing we accidentally do is we'll also say, like, give me 2 minutes. Give me 2 minutes and I'll be right there. And then our mind gets caught. And then it's like 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Right? And now we're frustrated because we didn't hold it, but they're frustrated too. And I promise you, it is with kids, it is quality over quantity. And I'll give you an example. If you've ever taken your kids like to Disney for the day,
Mhm.
right? Had an amazing day. You wake up the next day, and in our minds, we're like, oh my gosh, I just bought a week of, satisfying my kid. I'm good. Check the box. You wake up the next day, they're like, what are we going to do today? Because their brain doesn't log, it doesn't keep score of that was 12 hours together. So really, quality over quantity. 10 minutes every hour, you're golden. But most of us think like we have to carve out 20 hours or 8 hours, or we have to take our kids and go do something with them. Honestly, they don't care. They just want our attention. That's a basic need, and what they want is attention. And there's a lot of ways to give it.
And one of my favorite things about everything that you teach, and you've definitely started to touch on that here, is you are so good at getting in kids' heads and like understanding what a kid is thinking at any given moment. And that's one of the
I'm
things.
kidding myself.
What's that? Because you're a kid yourself. So if somebody wants to start to develop that skill of like getting in their kid's head, and understanding why their kid might be doing something, what's your recommendation?
Well, Beth, funny you should ask that, because I will tell you the greatest tool a parent has. Are you ready? I want everybody to get out a piece of paper and write this down.
Okay.
Parent's greatest tool ever is, drum roll please, it's simply saying to your kids, oh, tell me more. At any age, 2
Okay.
to 22 to 42. By the way, this also works on husbands, bosses, employees, mother-in-laws, and neighbors.
Double duty here.
Right? Right? But it's, let's say you have a 3-year-old and, they're melting down about, I don't know, what would it, they want a hot dog for lunch and you don't have any hot dogs.
That's my 5-year-old. He's developmentally 3. So yes, this is actually a spot on. Yep.
You just, so what's going on a lot of times is we're really uncomfortable with our kids' negative emotions. They're big emotions. We're uncomfortable. And we think our job is to solve problems. And it's really not our job. Our job is to be comfortable with being uncomfortable with their big emotions. Right? So let's say your kid says, I want a hot dog. And you're like, oh, honey, we don't have any hot dogs. And then they start whining or talking to you or getting upset. We want to like redirect. Oh, but look, I've got peanut butter and jelly and it's your favorite jelly. And
Right.
Right. And really what we want to say is like, I want to tell me more. Tell me more. Well, I this morning on Paw Patrol, they were eating hot dogs. Oh, you want a hot dog like Paw Patrol? Yeah, well, tell me more. Well, and it's like digging the onion. It's going layer by layer and really understanding what's going on. And it's tell me more gets into their brain. It also works with 15-year-olds. I'm going to tell you, they come in and, your kid gets in the car after basketball practice and slams the door and says, I hate coach so-and-so. Now again, you get uncomfortable because your kid's unhappy. You want to solve all their problems, but you're not really teaching them. So they say, oh, I hate basketball or I hate coach so-and-so. Oh, really? Tell me more. The instinct is to go, no, you don't. You don't really hate them. You love basketball. That's your favorite sport, right? Now,
Right.
We're telling them, but we're not hearing them, right? Connection is when we feel seen, heard, and understood. So when we say, tell me more, all of a sudden your kid's like, well, today in practice, coach picked on me. Oh, tell me more. Well, at the beginning of practice, I was talking, I didn't have my shoes on, and we had to run laps. Tell me more. Well, I know I'm supposed to be there, right? So now you really, it isn't that they don't like the coach, it's that they screwed up and they got called out on it. And there's an opportunity to have a conversation about not screwing up, about having your shoes on and being on the court on time. What do we need to do about that? Should we leave a little earlier? Did you get distracted? Should you maybe put your phone in your backpack before you go in to the gym, right? And so tell me more is really, I think, how you crawl into their brain and understand what they're thinking. And you listen with an open mind not to judge or fix or change or solve. You just want to know their perspective.
Oh man.
Right?
So,
I love that. And kind of help them. It sounds like with your last example with the teenager, kind of self-discovering. Oh, well, maybe it was me. Or, well, maybe I could have handled it differently. And next time, if I do, I'm not going to have that same result.
well, and it's interesting because, you know, we asked in MOMnation USA, and I think I mentioned this last week, but we had asked the question. We asked, would you rather give your kids what you didn't have as a child or teach your children what you weren't taught? And the majority of people said, I want to teach them what I wasn't taught. And it's like that awareness. It's not being told, oh, hey, maybe you were the problem, because that's actually probably what our parents did that didn't teach us.
Right.
It's giving that experience where they have to say it themselves, and then they teach themselves, and then they have to believe it because it came out of their own mouth.
It's turning on the internal compass, right? I always think to myself, you know, I remember the saying, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink, right? So, so if I am solving your problems for you and I'm telling you what to think, now you're dependent on me solving your problems. If I ask the right questions over the years, as your brain is developing, I am teaching you how to analyze and how to think and how to solve your own problems. Now, when you leave the house at whatever age, going out into the world to do whatever you're going to do, you have a lot of tools in your toolbox. You know, I always ask my clients, you know, what do you want in your kid's toolbox when they leave the home? And most will say, well, I want my kids to be happy. Okay, that's good. My kid's toolbox is going to be so big, it's going to take 6 of us to carry it to the car, because in it is going to be things like how to overcome disappointment, how to be resilient, how to go after what you want, how to deal with that coach that you feel picked on in practice, how to analyze, okay, I need to get there earlier, how to regroup, right? These are all the things that we want to teach our kids at home, so when they go out into the world, they have tools in their toolbox to be able to solve the problems, and they're not dependent on us.
Wow. So one of the things that you said earlier that it's just been stewing in my brain, because you're talking about being okay with like getting the C average and everything that we're doing right now. And it's interesting because as I was thinking about, like when I first went into this quarantine, I had like this goal to get a gold star. Like, I'm going to be a gold star quarantine kind of gal. And I feel like that happens every time there's a school break, anytime that there's any like transition where the kids are coming home, I'm going to be the best mom ever, right? And then like time passes and I have to give up that gold star goal. And so, but maybe it's just like redefining what you put the gold star on, right? Maybe I'm still going to get a gold star, but the gold star is actually just like something completely different than I told myself I had to achieve to deserve that gold star. So as people are going through the rest of this quarantine and into summer, how can they feel good about themselves and about the relationships that they're developing and deepening with their kids in this all?
Well, yes. Yes. Gold stars are an illusion. And I think the question that we have to, so I'll answer this in 2 ways. The question we have to ask ourselves is, whose gold star are we getting? Because a lot of times we're going after the neighbor's gold star, the Facebook gold star, which isn't isn't our kid's gold star, right? So the neighbor's gold star is, I've made homemade pasta and I've taken a picture of it and I posted on Facebook and my kids are all in pretty clothes and blah, blah, blah. And the kid's gold star might be like, you do dishes once a day and you sit on the couch and watch a series together, or you read a book out loud, or you play board games, because again, it's about attention, connection. And so I think step 1 in what you posed, Beth, is, and it sounds like, you know, is to ask yourself, well, what is the definition of gold star? Because we got to know what we're grading against, right? And oftentimes, you know, I mean, think about like I don't know, going to the beach with your kids. You know, what do your kids want at the beach? They want a bucket, a shovel, a raft, a towel, and you. And yet, what do we bring? You know, we bring cheese and crackers, and and I'm not saying we shouldn't bring cheese and crackers, right? Or, I don't know, a tent and all, you know. But let's just be honest about whose gold star we're trying to win, because oftentimes they're in conflict with each other.
Right.
Wow.
What?
Just wow. Just
Yep.
that sentence, that question, whose gold star? Whose
Yep.
gold star is it, like, that you're going for?
And,
That's
you know,
intense.
do it, go for your gold star with eyes wide open. If you're going to go for the external gold star, own it, do it, but just be honest about it, right?
Right.
If you're going to, you know, and if you're going to go for your kid's gold star, own that too. And don't be ashamed of it. You know, I think giving our kids what they need right now, even if that's a day in jammies on the couch, watching movies while eating popcorn, go for it. Those are memories, you know? So the other thing I'm big on that I want to touch on in terms of going forward and through the summer is a lot of times as parents, we're asking for cooperation from our kids. And Beth, I know you and I have talked a lot about this. We're asking for cooperation from our kids without getting connection first.
Yeah.
And I find this fascinating because we do not treat adults this way, right? Let's say, I'll illustrate what I'm talking about with an example. Let's say I work for Katie and we work in an office together. And well, let's say Katie's my employee. I would not one day bust into her office and be like, Katie, I need you to stay late for work today. Can you stay? Can you do it? Can you stay? Can you stay? I need to know right now. Katie, can you stay? Like, nobody would do that, right? It's ridiculous. I mean, if I was that boss, I wouldn't be the boss very long, because Katie would be marching up, you know, right past me to the next person and be like, that woman can't manage to save her life. She needs to go. I mean, it just would not be tolerated. And yet we do this. And we do this to our children. So instead, what would I do? I would knock on the door and I would say, hey, Katie, do you have a second? She'd look up and say, yeah, sure. Come on in, Lisa. Okay, there's connection number one. I'm asking permission, right? I'm making a connection. I come in, I sit down. I'm like, how's your day going, Katie? Oh, well, you know, this, that, and, you know, the virus, quarantine. I'm like, hey, you know, you're doing great. You're doing a great job. We have a little bit of connection. And then I make my request, right? Is there any way you could stay late tonight? Now I've connected with her, so she's getting some feel-good chemicals, and I built a relationship with her, and now there's a motivation. So she's really asking, well, can I do it? Is it possible? Can I help Lisa out? Can I stay late? Like, this is how adults treat each other, right? We go into Starbucks. We don't barge up to the thing. I want a latte right now, right? Like, or the worker, the Starbucks person doesn't look at me and go, what do you want, right? There's like, hey, how's it going? How's your day going? What can I get you? Again, connection before cooperation. Children, we're like, you know, in the kitchen and we're yelling like, get your shoes on. Come on, really? Like, I mean, just because they're little, we need to connect with them before we ask for the cooperation. It is really important because they get a feel-good chemical, and when we feel connected to people, we're much more willing to cooperate and comply. And we get busy as parents. We've got a lot going on. We're multitasking. We're scanning the universe. We're thinking about dinner and shoes and the meeting at work. And am I going to get there in time? And oh crap, I forgot to send that email. And I need to call Beth to see if we can watch a musical this weekend. And I left clothes in the wash machine. And oh, did my husband pay the taxes? Oh my gosh, are they due? Wait, what month is it? Right? We have all this going on. And so we forget that we need to connect with our kids. And so we need to connect with them. We need to walk over and make eye contact, get off the computer and connect with them before we make our request. Otherwise, we're like that bad manager that's just rushing in the room, barking orders at our kids. And they don't, after a while, they get tired of it, as we would at work. Eventually, if I barked at Katie enough, she'd go right over my head and be like, her or me, one of us is going. Pick, I don't care, but I'm not going to be talked to like that anymore. Our kids don't have that autonomy. They're forced to live with us, but they start to storm and become uncooperative. So I'm really big into connection before cooperation.
And one of the really interesting things as you were saying that is like, I remember being a kid and having my parents come in and bark orders, right? And just like being like, screw you, right? Like that's totally how I felt. But like I didn't translate that, right? Like as an adult, I didn't translate that into what do I do as a parent to not be that way? So that's so interesting. I mean, Katie, did you have that experience as well where as a kid, I mean, this is resonating that like
Oh,
you had
100%.
these things happen as a kid, but like as an adult, you don't necessarily equate like, what do I do to make this not be my child's
Right.
I
reality?
remember being a kid and saying all the time out loud, kids are people too. Don't they know that? Like, I
Right.
didn't feel like they thought I was a person. I was some other species that wasn't people, you know?
Totally. And I think what's interesting, and I love this conversation because as we go through life and go through adult life, I feel like we forget that kid head that we had, that kid brain. And every once in a while it comes back for me and I'm like, oh gosh, I remember thinking that as a child. I remember, being afraid of movies because I thought aliens were going to come and capture me and stuff like, and so maybe not a great example, but you know what I mean? Like I'm starting to, especially after this conversation, we'll do a lot more of that, but starting to go back to her from 31. Okay, I'm giving my age away, 35, 38 years ago. And really start to relate with that person. And then I can kind of understand, and that's helpful for getting inside your kid's head, to circle back to that original question that Beth had. So this has been very helpful for me. And I've noticed over the course of the last couple of years with my son, I've been getting back with, my inner child, I guess, and really, kind of reconnecting with her, which is a whole interesting ball game. I have a question though for you, Lisa. What are the biggest challenges that you see year after year? Yeah, we're in the COVID thing, so we're not at school. So it's kind of like summer vacation right now, right? With a little bit of school, I guess, mixed in. More school than we usually do over the summer, right? But what are the biggest challenges that you see parents facing year after year? Like the things that never change?
I think one of them is we convince ourselves that our kids are disrespecting us, and that triggers us. And that opens up, we go into alarm state, and we feel oftentimes justified in our behavior. There's a lot of parenting from the middle brain, from the alarm state, which is where the yelling and the threatening and the punishing come in. And I just had another thought and it left my brain. I think a lot of it is, particularly those of us that grew up in dominant households, we just don't know how to break the patterns. And I think that's the most frustrating because we love our children a lot and we want to do better. We just don't know how.
So this is interesting as you're mentioning the disrespect and, coming from dominant households and that sort of thing. I think about like PTSD. I've, been diagnosed with PTSD and you can have experiences that are very innocent on the other person's part that can trigger you and your trauma. And so when you have a child that comes and they talk to you in a way that your parents talk to you,
yes,
you feel like they're the boss. You feel like they're disrespecting you. You project all of this story onto this innocent child that has no clue. And they have no perspective to know that like you had X, Y, and Z happen when you were a child. And
Right.
so talking about healing that inner child, how can somebody even begin to heal that inner child so that they don't see their child as somebody that's disrespecting them, but see them as a child that's literally learning?
Well, here's what we have to know. All kids at all times are just trying to get their needs met. That's all they're doing. And we have to move away from judging them. You know, a lot of times, and Katie, this follows along with the question you asked. Parents come to me and they'll say, you know, he's being disrespectful, he's being difficult, he or she is not being anything. They're not doing anything to us. They're not giving us a hard time, they're having a hard time. And the only reason people storm is because they aren't getting their needs met. I mean, I focus on kids, but it's true of adults too. If you see someone in a grocery store melting down, it's not because they're trying to, you know, create attention or go in the front of the line. They're just not, they've got basic core needs that are not being met. And so Beth, I think the answer to your question is we have to see our kids storming as they're speaking a language of help. They're saying, please help me. I don't know how to handle all the feelings going on inside. I don't even know how to process. Again, prefrontal cortex is not fully developed, they're saying now, until about the age of 25. 25.
What?
So yeah. So when a kid is storming, you know, what they're saying to you is, I need help. And if I knew how to do it myself, I would have done it already. And if I knew how to ask for it, I would be asking you calmly. But I don't have a clue how to help myself. So this is the language that I'm speaking to you. I'm yelling or storming or slamming or melting down because I don't know how to help myself. And so I look at it, because I've been triggered by disrespect, and when my son was little. Now when he has a storm, I say to myself, this is his only way right now of asking for help. Now after the storm, we can talk about, is there a better way to show up? Is there something you could do differently? But in the middle of the storm, it's to stay out of judgment. Disrespect is one of them. And to just say, my kid is really asking for help. How can I help them? And just stay in that frame of mind of needing help. And as a parent, I want to help them, which is something that most of us didn't get as children. So that's a whole new way to show up too, is just, when you ask for help, I'm just going to do my best to help you.
Wow. This is, I mean, I've heard you say this all a million times before, and now I'm like, I need to listen to this podcast episode every day until I have this all committed to memory, because, oh my gosh, like the idea of, and like I said, I've heard you talk about the storm before, but realizing that like my kid is just storming. You know, it's been brewing for a while, and now it's a storm.
There's a level of cortisol in the body, and it just needs to come out. And that's part of the regulation process. Yes, I literally tell myself, look at him, he's begging. This is what I say. Look at him, he's begging you for help, mama. How are you going to help him? This is the dialogue I do, because sometimes, you know, their storms are big. I've got a, you know, very large child who's older, and the storms are big. And I could go to that ugly, dark place. I could swirl down that, he's being so disrespectful. I can't believe this. Why does he do this all the time? Who does he think he is? He's so ungrateful, right? That's all judgment. And we want to stay, because that is what triggers our storm, the
Right.
judgment. So if we stay out of that dark hole and instead look over and say, he is begging for help. How can I help him? It just becomes a very simple process. Not easy, but a simple process of understanding what's going on.
It's really interesting because, you know, with my son, we're working on getting him diagnosed. I'm very confident that he'll get diagnosed on the autism spectrum once we can finally, you know, get that process to that point. But he doesn't sleep at night. He doesn't, you know, there's a million different things that are struggles. But when I stopped being like, okay, but he needs to go to bed. Why does he need to go to bed? Because we put an arbitrary number on when his body is supposed to want to go to bed. His body doesn't want to go to bed until 10 or 11 p.m. And then he sleeps all night instead of waking up at 2 a.m. You know, like, just letting go of that, you know, the other people's gold stars of what a good parent is supposed to be, what a good parent is supposed to do. and showing up for your kid. It's been amazing just seeing the difference for
You do a
him.
great job of that, Beth. And I call that being awake at the wheel. It's analyzing what does my kid need. In some families it's going to bed at 7:30, and in some it's 10. In some families it's brushing your teeth at 6 o'clock because brushing the teeth reactivates the bedtime in it. And in some families it's just eating dinner when the kid's hungry instead of prescribing a 6 o'clock dinner time. And it's just being awake at the wheel. It's getting to know your kid. It's getting your own stuff out of the way, right? Your own agenda, back to the goal, and just saying, who is my kid? What do they need? How do I really tune into that and give it to them? It's awake at the wheel. It's a beautiful thing.
Oh my gosh. I just
I
want to
love
hug
that.
you right now.
I know. Zoom hug. I totally love that quote. Probably going to have to steal it. So Lisa, for those that don't know who you are, I'm sure they're scurrying to follow you right now because this has been an outstanding episode, and thank you so much. But what do you offer? Why should people follow you, basically? Do you have sort of coaching programs, or what do you have for parents out there?
I have a little bit of everything for people at all price ranges. So I have written a book that I offer. You can get a copy of it on my website, thepeacefulparent.com. So it's sort of an appetizer or an entree to my philosophy and what I teach. And it's ironically called The Angry Parent, How to Find Peace in Your Parenting Through the Message of Anger. So I use a model that anger actually can be a beacon and a tool in parenting to help us figure out what we need. And then I have a free mini course people can take. They find that right on my website. I have group coaching. I just launched a signature course called Peaceful Parenting 101, which I'm actually selling at a just crazy COVID-19 price because I know that lots of people need help and support right now, and I'm trying to do my part. And then I offer, one-on-one coaching. I really try to have something to help parents across, the entire range and deliver it in different ways depending on what is your way of taking in information.
Yeah,
Awesome.
and we tagged the Peaceful Parent on the Facebook post. But you can also find the Peaceful Parent on Facebook or Instagram, right?
Yep.
Yes. Awesome. Isn't she amazing?
Thank you so much, Beth. Thank you so much for introducing me to Lisa. Lisa, thank you so much for spending some time with us. This went by so fast. Like, we're gonna have to have you on again because
My pleasure. It was so fun. And yeah, I'm so pleased with what you're doing and how you help. And I'd love to be as involved as you guys will have me, because I believe in your mission.
awesome. Well, thank you so much. Oh, hearts. More Zoom hugs.
I don't know how to do hearts. My fingers don't do hearts well.
It's kind of,
Mine.
there you go.
There we go.
There we go. Should we
You have to do it like a perfect angle. It's not easy to do. So.
Look at Beth and her perfection talk over there.
Well, yeah.
Teasing. I'm teasing.
And the gold star goes to
Me! And I'm owning it.
Oh my gosh. All right, ladies, it's been real. I loved it. Mwah. Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye.